Welcome to Mentality Meets, conversations that explore mental health stories and strategies to help leaders like you change the culture of mental health in your workplace. I'm Peter Larkum, and today we're going to be talking with Eroll Chimanga. So here's the question for today's session. Can technology be used to help us access help and support sooner? Now, Eroll has always been fascinated by technology and its ability to facilitate. Now, he's been given this great opportunity to utilise this ever-evolving technology with the view of aiding both individuals like you and me, but also the organisations that we work for. So here's my conversation with Eroll Chimanga.
Hi everyone, my name is Eroll Chimanga. I am a co-founder of a startup called Porotherapy and Shona HR. I've been in and around tech and within product management ownership, over the last 10 plus years. And we were kind of midway through the creation of our mental health, product when we started a conversation with yourself, Peter, way back in April, I think, 2020. I wanted to get some feedback on a few pointers, and I guess the rest they can say is history. And we're here today discussing, what was an initial discussion, which is now a product. That's how we've, I guess, come to be. But very excited to be here today, and to speak to you, and obviously answer any questions that may come through as well around tech, and hopefully goes well.
So we're going to talk about that piece of work and where that conversation basically led us in this conversation around, can tech be used to help people who are struggling with their mental health access help and support quicker? That was kind of the background. Just to kind of put it into context, you and I spoke quite early about whether we could use, or whether you could use, I love the fact that I'm putting me into the context of this, whether you could use a device like Alexa to be a device that you can talk to when you're struggling, so as Alexa can help you through that time and potentially get you help and support. Can you just give us a little bit of a breakdown as to how that even works, and kind of some of the questions that might come up, and how you kind of began to build the algorithm, and where this device kind of fits within everything that you're creating at the moment?
Yeah, of course. So I've got a son who's now 12, and I think it was 3 years ago, or even before, he was diagnosed with autism. And 2-3 years ago, I was looking, we were always looking at, tech, and, me being a tech, having developed mobile applications, websites, and so on and so forth. It was always something, in my head. I was like, okay, there must be a way that tech can help my son with his autism. There must be a way. And so, we did the online games, there were online courses, but the difficulty of that was it was quite labor intensive. Okay, switch on the machine, open the laptop, okay, password, username, blah, 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 blah. And for me, I was going, there must be an easier way. We're 2018 at the time, or 2017. I was like, there must be an easier way. So I looked at Alexa. I was very skeptical, as I've mentioned to you, Peter, way back when. And early on, I wasn't an early adopter of utilizing voice technology, even smart home devices, to be fair. And I kind of had a conversation with my wife. Long story short, we ended up getting an Amazon Echo. As it turns out, the first 2 months, no one's using it. We're only using it to switch the radio on or play a song. Ultimately, your basic bare minimum. And all of a sudden, my son started to utilize it a bit more and more. And initially it was around homework questions, which obviously was cheating, asking for sums to be calculated and so forth, which for me at the time, I was like, okay, but he's using it. And for me, that wasn't an achievement on its own. I'm going, okay, usually he's either very guarded within himself, or it takes warming up for him to even ask anyone outside of myself or my wife any kind of question. And so the fact that he's going Alexa, what's 20 times 4? For me, it was like, hang on a minute, there's something here. So obviously, as the months went on and on, he started utilizing the device even more and more. We ended up moving that device into his room where, especially at night, he would want specific whale noises, and they had to be specific that were played through the device. And it was music, it was playing games, literally quizzes. He wanted to play quizzes on the device. And that for me was the kind of, right, I think there's something here. So my sister is in New Zealand, and she's a CBT therapist. And so I started having a conversation with her, and I said, listen, what if there was a way that we could help, and I'd done a bit of research leading up until that point, what if there's a way that we could help people suffering from mild to moderate anxiety or depression, primarily from a CBT perspective, that we could look to ultimately drive interventions or or resources utilizing a device. She put the phone down and said, "No, you're silly, you're ridiculous. Don't be silly." 2 minutes later, she rang me back after she had thought about it, and she went, "If you could do that, that would be amazing, because that would help me and my patients. Because at the minute, I suffer a lot in terms of homework that I have to give my patients. I don't know whether they're doing it before that I see them face to face. It could help them as well, because it's something there that's 24/7. The ability for interaction with a device, depending on your anxiety or depression at that particular point in time." And so that was the basis of the idea. So we started looking at the tech, collaborating quite closely with Amazon and their tech people. And ultimately, what's happened in terms of where we are now, and again, we can delve into it. Where we are now is, we're speaking to our local NHS trust down here in Kent, and they're looking to pilot the platform with regards to giving as many people as possible access to interventions.
So what you've been working on is to create an app that is downloadable by a device, let's say Alexa for argument's sake, where somebody who is struggling, whether it's just because they've had a bad day, had an argument, feeling a bit, I don't know about you, I've had those days, but they can then say, "Hey, Alexa, I'm feeling pretty low." And the algorithms that you're creating in the background are to teach Alexa how to respond, so as basically Alexa can say, "Hey Pete, why don't you try this," or some ideas. And from a counselling perspective, and I know we've got some counsellors on, when a counsellor says, "Hey, why don't you go and do this, or why don't you try and engage with that," but never quite knowing whether the patient or client has, then Alexa can track that data, regardless of the time of day, I suppose, because it's going to be there all the time. So if I wake up at 2:00 in the morning and I'm feeling really rubbish, then actually the app can click in and can kind of connect and reach out to offer me help. Is that about right?
Yeah, you've pretty much got it in a nutshell. And a lot of it actually was the base. My son's behavior with his device was the basis for a lot of where we're at now. So he would get up at 3 a.m. when everyone else was asleep, and ultimately you would hear him conversing with Alexa, just asking random questions. "Alexa, do you know Google? Alexa, what's your favorite color? Alexa, what's the best animal, a lion or an elephant?" And so with that, you start to go, that's the way things should be with tech. It's 24/7. The ability, it shouldn't be that you have to wait another, 5 hours to be able to have to speak to someone. And the point I want to make here is, with the device is not taking away the face-to-face element with therapists or with counselors at all. It's not. It's just an aid in terms of those times of the day where you can't reach out to anyone, and there is ultimately the device available. So we have primarily targeted voice. So the application, yes, it is an application, but it's a voice application. It's a skill. It's a voice skill that can be utilized ultimately across Google Home, Amazon with Alexa, with your phone. So we've catered for people that ultimately don't have smart home devices as well. So you can use it on your mobile phone and also on a laptop. But again, this is all utilizing voice. You don't have to type in a password, username, email. No, everything is via ID, which is via an ID that you actually explicitly say. Example, my ID is 1234. Then it ultimately links you. Obviously, that individual has to have given consent. Obviously, that's really, really important for us in terms of being GDPR from this side compliant, and across the pond in the States, HIPAA compliant as well. But the principle of the product is, depending on how you're feeling at that particular time, the algorithms that we've built in the background look at what we're calling sentiment analysis. We're calling it a poorer engine, where based on your keywords and your phrases, the device is looking at sentiment, positive, negative, mixed. And depending on that, it's ultimately going through, okay, if you are negative at that particular point in time, what in the last couple of days, yesterday, previous day, and so forth, made you positive? An example could be, you say to the device, I'm feeling great. It doesn't just go, amazing, that's super. The machine learning element in the background, as well as the algorithms we've got, want to delve in and dig in and store and remember to go, Peter took the dog for a walk yesterday, and that made him feel very, very happy, and it banks it. Peter made his favorite curry. That makes him happy. Let's bank it. And again, it's looking at time of day as well. So obviously, if it's in the afternoon and you said dinner, it's not going to mention dinner in the morning, for example. And so what the premise and, again, principle of the tool is, depending on what you've said to the device, it then looks at interventions. It could be multiple options that are given to that individual person at that particular time, depending on obviously what they say and how the phrase is then portrayed using the machine learning algorithm in the background. So it could be that at the end of the conversation, I'm feeling down. Why are you feeling down? My friend shouted at me. Okay, do you know why that happened? Because of work, I did this. Ultimately, it's storing all of that information. Okay, based on what you said, Peter, there are a couple of options we can go through here right now, which include listening to music, playing a game, doing a meditation session, or simply calling a friend through the device. And all you have to do is say, call Eroll. So Alexa, call Eroll, and it calls my friend. So it's not a case of just, it's a two-way conversation. It's a two-way conversation where Alexa's gathering this information and then going, based on what you've said, I think these options, available here, you could take any one of them or even all of them. But you as an individual have the option to then go, no, I don't want to take any of them. You don't have to. And again, as I think we were saying the other day or earlier, that it's still you at your discretion. It's not driving you. It's not pushing you to have to undertake listening to music or playing an online game where a quiz or and so on and so forth.
From that, it's the opportunity for me to kind of be honest and real, which, to be fair, when you're face to face with someone, you can very easily kind of put a mask on, skirt around the issue, avoid different things. But sometimes when there's nobody there to judge you, you find that you may actually be a little bit more honest and a little bit more real. And what you're saying is that the device will be able to pick up on this, store the good stuff that has happened in the past. So as when I'm struggling, it can say, hey, why don't you try this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you re-engage with something that it already knows makes me happy? Or has the ability to say, hey, in my list, I've got 3 top friends, and it says, would you like to call someone? And I can say, yeah, call Eroll, and it will do it for me. I don't even have to type anything in. I don't have to do anything. It's simply there in the background. So we'll get back to our interview in just a second. I want to tell you about a video course I made called Mentality. It's a 1-hour mental health video course delivered by me. It gives you the need to know essentials to spot the signs of poor mental health and take action. So here's what other people have said about it. Maria said, I was surprised how it made me think about myself and even my friends and family. Patients' feedback said, mentality is eye-opening. It helps you support someone to get the help they need, perhaps potentially saving their life. James's response says, it was the best course I've been on. I had the attention span of a gnat, and I was gripped for the whole time. You see, poor mental health is devastating so many people all over the world. And yet, despite a general recognition that there's a problem, very few people know what to do. We miss the signs of poor mental health, or if we see someone struggling, we don't know what to do. And that's where mentality steps in. It's the need to know essentials on how to spot the warning signs and take appropriate action to respond. All packaged together in a digestible 1-hour video training course for your workforce. It's designed for everyone, because every person, whoever you are, can be affected. To access Mentality, simply visit www.mentality.work. That's www.mentality.work. Click on Enroll, add your details, and enjoy. Mentality. Spot the signs and take action. And so here's the second part of our interview. Another thing that we were talking about was the fact that the device will not only store the good stuff, but it will also help me when I use certain phrases, or it will be able to track that a phrase, I feel really bored, I feel really low, is a negative context, and being able to kind of track that stuff as well, so as it has a much broader picture of who I am and how I'm doing on a daily basis. Now, my question to you, Eroll, in the workplace, when we've got so many of our team working from home, working through isolation, is this a piece of tech that companies can engage with to support their teams? And I don't know kind of where it is on the development stage, but can you just take a moment and explore it from a working context?
Yeah. So with regards to that, yes. So there are two elements in terms of where the product is. The first part, obviously, directly from a mental health perspective, we're working directly with the NHS and we're piloting that. So we don't want that out until we've got the seal of approval from an NHS standpoint. We've gone through the rigors and the checks. We've fixed, there's bound to be loads of things to fix there. But from an employee well-being perspective, yes, we have a tool that's available and actually being piloted at the minute. And we're seeing a lot of the skeptical companies are actually the ones that are finding more use in the platform, because similar to the mental health product, the information that individuals, clients, patients go through and converse with the device is actually all going back into a dashboard. So if that person is ultimately at the minute in therapy, for example, that information is actually going back to the therapist. That's part of the trial that we're ultimately doing with the NHS to see, does that information actually help the clinician in terms of understanding that Peter has conversed with the device at 2 a.m. in the morning constantly for the last 3 weeks, and these are the type of interventions that have helped him, and so forth. So, and then from an employee well-being perspective, obviously the question that's the challenge, well, the problem that's being passed over to us to try and look to resolve is, can you give us insight and data to understand more about how our employees are feeling right now? And it's like you're ultimately taking forms, filling out forms and surveys into the voice world ultimately, where it's available 24/7. And one of the clients that we're piloting with were saying that the response is coming back ultimately where at the weekends, or even, on a Sunday or a Saturday, where they want to, the company's trying to understand employees, not just on Monday to Friday, but just try and give like the whole employee experience a different meaning. But ultimately the data and information back from employees is going to be important. So what's the best way? Some people, obviously, it is scary, and I'm not going to say sit here and go, everyone should start adopting it. I was late adopting it. Like I said, I was skeptical until I started to see how it could be utilized, especially from my son, and how I saw him using it, and
And so that's kind of been my next point to just bring out. Kind of listened and said, one of my clients recently said, I'm not a robot and I want the connection with people. And it's totally true. And so it's about kind of acknowledging the concerns, but also it's not a replacement. And I think that's really key, isn't it, Eroll?
Yeah, 100%. There's no way I could sit here and say to you that it's the next thing with regards to replacing that interaction. It is about giving everyone an opportunity to be able to get interventions at the minute. So, for example, when we're doing our research and speaking to the NHS, they're saying 6 weeks to 6 months. When either someone goes to their GP and the GP has literally 15 minutes to fill out what's called a HADS questionnaire, and what we're saying is actually, and one of the tests we're going to do with the NHS is that we're going to utilize the tool to actually gauge over time those individuals actually use it as a triage before going, actually, do you know what? From a HADS questionnaire, this would have already gauged what the tool has over a period of time, because that's our health system at the minute is stretched, it's stretched so much, and the only other things that can aid it are technology, and it does not take away that human element. And hence why we've actually the designing of the dashboard, where this information then goes back to said clinician to be able to, when you do have your face-to-faces, because not everyone can afford a private a private therapist, for example, once, twice a week. Not everyone can do that. Some of them, as my sister mentioned to me, and some of the other psychologists that we're working with mentioned, it could be once a month, it could be once every fortnight. But in between that, we want to ensure that they're happy, they're okay, and they're coping. And so recording of even the face-to-face sessions is something that would be in the tool, that if you trigger a specific word, that the device will go, would you like us to replay that session with Dr. X around this topic? And those are, as much as it's just one, two, it's literally the machine learning is going, okay, how can we fit in what you've done already in terms of those previous sessions, or how can we connect you as much as we can, to what how you're feeling, and the interventions the tool is primarily looking at based on the program that you may be on at that particular time.
I could talk about this all day. I just find this so intriguing. The whole context of being able to engage with something on a regular basis that's helping to track my mood, track the way I am. And I know that we've talked about the form score with Rob Stevenson and being able to kind of see that the ups and downs on a daily basis. I love the idea of kind of using tech in the conversation around, can we not only be able to see people face to face, but also to have this bit of tech that's in the background encouraging me and supporting me as I go through. So, does speaking tech scare you? And would you be willing to give it a go? I personally am not a fan, but in the conversation today, I realised that it will only grow and develop if I begin to engage with it. And also, in the next 2, 3, maybe even 4 years, the talking technology is going to be the main way that we engage. So next week, I'm going to be talking with Anila Rose. Now, Anila is the managing director of Rose Media Group and clearly states that the success in her business and her sporting achievements are based on a relentless growth attitude, hard work ethic, and trust in others. So we're going to be talking about how much personal attitude can positively and negatively impact on our mental health. So may I encourage you to leave us a review in the podcasts, because it really does help get the word out. Thanks again for listening to Mentality Meets, conversations that explore mental health stories and strategies to help leaders like you change the culture of mental health in your workplace.